Moors, anybody that will refer to themselves as Negroes, blacks, or colored people. So before the 1500s, I have a bunch of books with me when I traveled. I'm just going to show you so y'all can see just how I move around. So this ain't all of them. I'm packing right now, so this is just some of the books I have with me. But the Moors, anyone that was like I said, Negro, black, or colored, or Mexican, because you have Mexican Moors.
So it's just is it attached to a skin tone? Is it attached to a land base? Like, break this down because I know that is it a nationality? Like, there's a whole bunch I'd like for you to kind of share
Okay,
in terms
so
of in terms of this.
this is the thing. Um, it can be linked to complexion. It's not black though. It's not a black thing. So I don't like it when people say more means black because it doesn't mean black. More is just anybody of hue complexion or dark skin. So the terms that we have to be very careful with is black and white. Those terms are basically new terms. They're not ancient terms. And I always put out books like this. You can read J.A. Rogers' book. He tells you the difference between a black and a Moor. He explains these things. Black is not a historical thing. It's a Middle English word. It's not an ancient word. It's Bleac. That's what black is. That's how you spell black. It's Anglo-Saxon. So when people say more, that's why I wish I was there to actually have everything set up. Because I literally just woke up. I took a nap. I'm literally waking up
Yeah.
and coming directly to you. So there's books that you can get it to explain a lot of these things. One of the books is sister named Caroline Cook. I don't know if you ever heard of her before. You never heard of her, Caroline Cook?
I have
Okay.
not.
She wrote a
Bodie, have you heard of Carolina Cook?
No.
I have
no.
not. We have not.
Go on if you get a chance, go online, look her up. She has a book, and I have the book too. It's called Forbidden Passage.
Okay.
The book is called Forbidden Passage, and it speaks about the Moors in and how the Moors was converted to Catholicism. So the Moors were basically anybody that was dark. It has really nothing to do with religion. They in what Europeans put in, they said it was a religion. They said the Moors were Muslims, but Moors were also Jews. You see what I'm saying? So when you go to these places, you'll see it. So when they were saying that the Moors got kicked out of Spain, they were talking about the Muslims and the Jews. Those are the Muslims and Jews that were Moors. They have Moors, bruh. When you go to Granada, it'll blow your mind. A lot of stuff happened in Granada, Spain, and Portugal. I just came back from Portugal in November. That was probably my eighth trip over there to Portugal. So
Uh-huh.
those two places is where the so-called slave trade happened at because they took people to Portugal. And then from Portugal, they brought them to the United States. So in Portugal, they have a museum over there. And they literally, I was like, they have the spelling on the wall. It's not Moor. That's not how it's spelled over there. It's in Portuguese. It is Moure. That's how it's spelled. Or Moros. That's hold on, I'm gonna give you the correct spelling on it. But when you go there, you'll see all these things, and I'm gonna tell you, it's an eye opener when you see it. So over here, we say Moor. That's modern terms. But you have Moriscos, Moranos, Maroons, Morays, and they all refer to our brothers and sisters, even in the Caribbean. They're still Moors, and it only meant the dark complexion people.
Talk to me a little bit about 1492 and before, like the significance. A lot of folks talk about 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but that's also a very significant year for the Moors, particularly in Spain, or what they call the Iberian Peninsula, or what I just call Africa. Or, talk a little bit about 1492 as it relates to Moorish history, if that's a fair question.
That was the last stronghold of the Moors. So it was around 1491 and 14. It was 1491 and 1492. So they only tell you about 1492. But you said it started. We talked about it. We don't talk about 1492. They talk about 1619. Way after that. You follow me? Not 1492. So 1492 is when Ferdinand was getting the money. He got financed to do these things. He got financed by Isabella and Ferdinand. That's how it was basically financed to take out the Moors. After 1492, brother Jeff, after 1492, they started baptizing a lot of Moors. You had to be forced into Catholicism, and you had and the Moors that weren't baptized, they had to wear like a half moon crescent to identify who they were. This is the history, but they don't teach people here. When you go to, I was in Mexico, I stayed in Mexico for a while. That's why I said everything happened around 1491 and 1492. That was the time frame of everything being changed, right? So when you go to these places like Mexico, you in Spain, and you know the history before these things happen. So you have to understand the sellouts, and I have to speak about it, brother. It was our people that was selling our people out. You know what I mean? I have to be real with it. We have to understand that Montezuma also was the same way. He sold his people out. And Montezuma got stoned by his own people because he took the side of the white Spanish. People don't know the history about that. Study history about Montezuma. And then you see what Montezuma looked like. This is why I said I wish I had the slide to show you what Montezuma looked like. There's a book called How Spain Became a World Power. How in 1492 it says how Spain became a world power here. Because when he came here, they saw people that looked like us, but they called us Indians, but we're not an Indian. You know what I mean? So it was the indigenous Moors that was here on this particular land. So again, a lot of this stuff is you have it takes time to basically try to explain all of it and how they destroyed us around 1492 and 1491 and 1492. And I keep saying 1491 because that plays a big part too. We only talk about 1492.
Talk a little bit about the history of the Moors prior to 1492, 1491. What were their accomplishments? What were some of their, notable advances?
Astrology, alchemy, and when you go to Spain, you'll see the Casa de Alchemy. We started alchemy, medicine, science, oldest universities. Do you know the oldest university in the world is? You know the name of it?
I'm going to bring in a brother in our community who just like he consumes this information. Just
Oh, what's up, brother? Peace, peace.
Peace and love.
it's good. He's a consummate consumer
That's okay. He's the one then. He's
of
the one. He's the one for y'all.
this, and it's interesting to bring this up in modern times. As you've studied and I've studied and we've studied, sometimes you forget more than you remember.
100%.
And so with that being said, I want to, Mauryell, would you please just talk a little bit maybe about the history of the Moors? What does that mean to you? How do you explain that for individuals who want to know more? And how do you navigate the controversy around the word from particularly conscious individuals who say that they are the owners of particular labels at the expense or exclusion of others?
100%. First off, shout out to you, brother Sabir Bey. Appreciate. I don't know. I think you were involved with that documentary around the Prophet, right? Turtle Gang. That documentary that's on YouTube.
Yeah. I just talked about that today about that documentary and how we shot that documentary. It was like, what's the movie called? The Spook That Sat by the Door type stuff. That's how we shot it. It was that type of vibe. You know how to do shot that movie, The Spook That Sat by the Door. That's how we shot that. It was like no money, no budget, no nothing. We just shot it. And my brother with Turtle Gas said, "You got a camera? Come on, brother, let's film this." So yeah, it was called The Prophet of the People.
Yes, sir. Shout out to you for that. I wanted to answer your question and kind of gumbo what was already been said today. The term Moor actually comes from the word Maori, which is the indigenous people, or you would call what they modern terms call Berber, but the proper term is either Amazigh or Amashek in North Africa. Maori actually comes from also the kingdom Mauritania. In Strabo, the Roman scholar said that the term Maori was indigenous to the Maori people. It was later adopted by the Greeks and the Romans to mean dark skin. And then when you get into the time of Islam, so many of us were Muslim that then now the term Moor and Muslim
is related,
synonymous. But because anywhere that we got, when trade is going on, education is going on, Sufi centers is going on, it becomes diverse. So then other people of lighter shades of skin start to now come into our rule, take on certain customs, take on certain intermarry as well. And now you get this whole dichotomy between like lighter Moors and darker Moors. Like you got the term tawny Moor, you got the term even like quote unquote white Moor, etc. So then this causes the confusion about what a Moor is because Moorish civilization has always been multicultural and heavily diverse. In fact, again, the Moors were a confederation. And that's why it's so important for us to understand our Moorish heritage here because, so-called African Americans are a federation of certain West African ethnic groups. And before colonization, a lot of these same West African ethnic groups were in Moorish trade networks, etc. It was part of that civilization. So this is why we get so much confusion about the term Moor, even when it comes to Islam, when the term predates Islam, and we're talking, as late as 2,300 years ago, as early as 4, 5, 6,000 years ago. So there's a lot of history that to unpack there. And the reason why it is so confusing is because of one, you have this term in different cycles of time, pre-Islam versus post-Islam, but then you have people marrying into our civilization and taking on our customs, which then they get their name. And then now the process of denigration, like he was talking about after 1492, is that those Moors who were forced to Catholicism were then called Moriscos, which is, a derogatory term, meaning basically how Europeans in the South call us boy. That's basically what Morisco meant at that time. In fact, there's a good paper called it's basically about how racist thought started in the Iberian Peninsula. In this process of denigration that honestly, this dichotomy between so-called Black and white people started with Moors and Catholics.
Is there like, when I'm thinking of this term more, and I'm asking questions in in terms of solidifying and people who are listening able to join in the conversation. And so some of the questions I'm asking, I do have an understanding of, but I want to get a clearer understanding. I want to get a more unified understanding. And so with that being said, if you can imagine a time, and it's hard in recent times to think about entire civilizations that were run and ruled at the highest levels by dark-skinned people. You know what I mean? And so if you are in North America, no matter what they call you, and you have citizenship, you may be considering yourself North American. But you could be very diverse. You know what I mean? It could mean if that is the moniker of the time, and you're North American or you're South America or you're Central American, and you got all of these things in the middle that define that. When we talk about these Moorish civilizations, what would they have been known by, or would you equate Moorish civilizations as synonymous with, say, North American, the United States of America?
But see, this is the thing, Jeff. You really got to have the information in the books, because you can be really confused about it. We have to sometimes blame our scholars and our teachers. If you study the history, Noble Drew Ali laid it out. He laid it out a long time ago. He told us the third and fourth generation are going to come with their eyes wide open. So what happens, you got to go back. This is why I was going to these particular places to find out what took place and what happened. So when we say Moor, we're thinking only what? Moor, right? That's what you hear, right? But if you study history of the Moors and you look up Morisca, Moriska, that's what they would say in Spain also. So this is why I said I wish I was there to show you the plaques. When I'm there, this is one of the plaques that was there. And you have the English version of it. What it is still Moor. They were still the Moors that was running up and down there. But you have to study Boabdil and what Boabdil have done. You have to study Sandiata Keita, the Lion King. You got to study the history of how we were selling each other out for pennies, bruh. You have to, and the same thing is happening. So this is why we know nothing about the Moor that was at Harvard University. You don't hear about that. That slave, the Moor that was at Harvard. Why did I go to Harvard? Look it up. Why did I go to Harvard to find the slave that was at Harvard? And the lady said, "Oh, don't nobody come in looking for that." And when the people started digging, they was firing people that was digging up this history. So it's for some reason dealing with the Moors is like a taboo. You see what I'm saying? Because it cannot be talked about here. And really in Spain, it wasn't talked about either. Only to a few people. You see what I'm saying? But you got to know who to talk to. So a lot of this stuff, because you have to go back to Ferdinand, Isabella, and what they have done. They had to get the Moors out of there. It wasn't that they hated us because the complexion, the knowledge that we had. And Europeans was our children. This is why I asked you about the university.
And what is that university?
El Carouin. El Carouin. I did a book on it. I was there I took a tour. I took people there. It's inside the Medina. You know, I was there. I was like blown away. If you go to YouTube, you'll see me standing there. It'll tell you how old it is. Why don't we know about that? Why don't we know that a French Pope went to a Muslim university? Pope Sylvester.
Mm-hmm.
You can look this up. So what is it about the Moors that they know that we don't know here? If you Google the oldest university in the world by Fatima Feta, I went to her hometown. She's from Tunisia, but she opened it up in Fez, Morocco. I was in both of those places. Both of those places. I went from Tunis to Morocco. And I took about about 4 or 5 people there inside to see the university. And when you go, you'll see it. And then when you sit up there in the Medina, you start talking to the people. But they can't speak the indigenous language that was there. So Moors, let me make this clear. Moors were not just from North Africa. Let me make that very, very clear. That's what they tell people. The Moors were also from West Africa too. If you look up the Massa Moors, it's called the Massa. You know who the Massas are, right?
I'm following along, listening.
Hold up. Can I add to that?
Yeah, what I wanted you to do, I want you to look it up, and I want your people to look up. It's Massa, Massa. It's called the Massa Moors, right? There's a book called Portuguese in West Africa, and it talks about the Moors all through it, and it speaks about the Moors of Guinea. Where's Guinea at? Mm-hmm. West Africa. It speaks about the Moors of Guinea. Now, I'm going to give you another one. They have a college out in California. I almost thought I was home. There has a college out in California called Claremont. Now, I'm giving you this for your audience so they can look this up. Look up Claremont College, Portuguese and West African slave trade. Portuguese Moors and the West African slave trade. It'll pop straight up. I went to the college. I'm walking on the campus. I'm talking to the people. It was like, yeah, we know about this. Why don't we know about it? This is still dealing with the Moors. Moors, when people hear Moors, they think that we're only talking about Morocco. No. It's all over. That's what we were. And still are to this day.
Mauryell, you wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah, about the West Africa part, right? When we look at how the Almoravid dynasty was started basically on the Senegal River, this is where probably the second big instance of how Islam hit West Africa. So the term Almoravid in Arabic is called Almorabitun. And in West Africa, a lot of Muslim teachers have the term, the word Marabout. The term Marabout is connected to the term Almorabitun, which means like to be tied or, to a cause and things like that. So teachers throughout West Africa and Nigeria and Ghana and Mali and Senegal and Guinea, etc., in the Sufi orders or even in the madrasas, a lot of the times the teacher is called Marabout. As well as during the transatlantic slave trade, we have records that even certain like voodoo priests and things like that would style themselves as marabouts because of how the marabouts would come into certain West African villages and be the people who had knowledge of medicine and rainmaking, which would be connected to, like even in Yoruba land, a lot of the marabouts would connect with the traditional Yoruba priests on rainmaking and bringing rain during the time of spring and summer, etc. So like there's a deep connection with this term Marabout, Moor, and West Africa.
I'm trying to figure like I'm seeking a unifying language
Yes.
because I know a lot of this scholarship is either co-opted, you know what I mean? It's not shared. You and all of us have gone around the world and traveled and done different things, and we've seen individuals standing in front of great architecture or monuments or history purporting that it's theirs.
What you hold on,
Or they won't, or they
What you
won't
mean?
say that it's they won't. And what I'm talking about is white folks.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about, and that's a general term. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
For like when you go to Egypt and you think them Arabs that are standing there giving you tours of these pyramids are somehow in any way, shape, or form connected to that history, it's troubling that the people who are don't know it, and the people who are pretending do know it, and they will answer only if you press them. They're like, hold up a second. You do know you don't have nothing to do with this, right? And the most oppressed people on the planet have everything to do with it. And now we're talking about a stolen legacy. You know what I mean? We're talking about stolen legacies. And
George
then
Damn James.
there's a reclamation of, oh, I'm just going to say original people coming forth to say, hold up a second. This is actually my legacy, and that's the kind of where I want to get, because when you go to Spain or Portugal, that entire Catholic, that entire European society is built on top of original or Moorish kingdoms.
Yeah.
And the proof of that is Sabir Bey, as someone I know who travels extensively and documents and can bear witness to it. When you get into Spain and Portugal, what will you see? And what is that whole kind of today's civilization based on and on top of?
Can I tell you this, man? A lot of stuff you probably wouldn't see if you went there for 1 or 2 days. You got, like you said, you got to know what to say. Do you know that a lot of the mosques, that cathedrals are built over top of mosques? They're literally built over top of them. Okay, so there's one in Granada, huge. You can look up. It's in the center of Granada, right? And on the bottom was a mosque. And there was another place I was in Portugal, and I'm trying to find the name of it. And I was there, and it actually show you. I'm using my tablet on here, but I can't pull it up. I'm trying to put it up on my phone. But there's another spot that is there. Oh, here you go. I found it. I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm saying this to you. It's called Silves. Silves. That's in Portugal, right? Silves. That's me in Silves, right? There is a mosque built, a church, a cathedral built over top of a mosque also, but you're not going to find it because you wouldn't know it's there. But it looks like this. That's the cathedral. That's built over top of a mosque, and on the side of it, if you read it, it'll tell you what was there at that site. So all of these cathedrals that you see are built over top of mosques to cover it up. That's what they were doing. They covered all the mosques up, and nobody knows it. So now you come in as a tourist, you don't know what was there. You think it was the cathedral. But when you read those little plaques and talk to the people, then they start telling you. So a lot of this history of the Moors had to be swept under the rug. And it's not just over there, it's over here too. We are covering it up. Your black professors are covering it up. I always talk about Dr. Greg Carr, why he don't teach this in Howard University. Why? You're a professor. You're supposed to know this. You know it's not a religion. You see what I'm saying? So why don't we know this history on who we were before 1492?
Why don't we? Why, Mauryell, why don't we?
Simple.
Crazy. Go ahead.
It would disrupt the mental, political, and economic slave trade that's been happening since
Yes, it would.
the formation of the United States. Because if I am going to subjugate you, if I am going to implant an idea that people that look like me are inherently better than people that look like you, I cannot tell you that people that look like me taught people that look like me everything.
There you go. And you can't control a person like that.
So it's game. It's trick. It's technology.
Exactly. This is why you have to read, right? J.A. Rogers have a brilliant book, brother. You should start selling books in your store. His book is called Nature Knows No Color Line. That book is hell of a book, bro. Nature Knows No Color Line. He explains how Europeans used to blacken their faces to imitate the Moors. He'll tell you that. And then he talks about 1601, how Queen Anne and them painted their face. I'm gonna give you a movie. It's on Netflix. It's still on there. I'm surprised. You see that book, that documentary, bro?
Talking about Queen Charlotte.
Queen Charlotte, right?
Yep.
Right. Where do you think Charlotte, South Carolina, come from? From her. That's where it come from. Look it up. Queen Charlotte. If you Google Queen Charlotte or Charlotte, North Carolina, it's North Carolina, right? Yeah, you'll find out where did it come from. It came from a sister. So in the documentary, which they had this thing up there for 2 years, and I'm like, usually, stuff don't stay on Netflix that long. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that documentary still on Netflix? You know why? They putting it right in front of your face because they know you ain't gonna look for it. Movies leave after a certain time on Netflix. If you Google right now, go on Netflix and look up Queen Charlotte, and they say in the documentary, she's talking about she's dark skinned, she's a Moor. They talk about it in the movie, in the documentary, bruh.
Said paint her lighter.
Yeah, that's why they paint. When you look at J.A. Rogers' color book, they got her lighter on the cover, right? But you look up Queen Charlotte, you'll see it. So movies like Black Knight, stupid movie, very stupid movie, stupid, right? In the movie, they called him a Moor. He said, "When no doubt, a black." He said, better watch your tongue, Moor, to Martin Lawrence. In Will Smith, Wild Wild West, they called him a blackamoor. In that, he said, "When no doubt, a blackamoor like yourself." And Will had that metal thing on his neck with the dude, right? That was the time of Grant. In Black Knight, through the whole movie, Martin Lawrence was called the Moor. But let me tell you how this happens. They put it in the movie, right? Martin fell in the water, became unconscious, right? What happens when you underwater? You become unconscious, right? What happens when you get hit in your head? You become unconscious. That movie was a dumb movie, but they're trying to tell you about it, but we don't see it because we don't see ourselves. We're so disconnected with all of this now. So now in your mind, because you're watching television or YouTube, you think the Moors is a religious group of people. That's not it. That's not true. It's you that they're talking about. And you are Hiram Biff. Hiram is you that's been hitting your head and knocked unconscious. That's why the judge bangs that mallet 3 times. Bam, bam, bam. Go study the 3 ruffians.
Well, I can tell you, Mauryell Bey says Robin Hood.
That's another one.
Robin Hood. We could do Othello.
Othello.
Oh, brother.
I want to do Othello here in the community in February, brother Chuck.
Let's make it happen.
Listen, let me tell you something.
You would do Othello?
I would do Othello.
Do Othello, bro. I'm gonna keep it. But I was talking to Big Red, Hawthorne James, about that, and because he's a bad, like that boy's bad. Big Red Hawthorne. Oh my God, I had brought that up to him. I said, "Yo, bro, we should do a play on Othello." He said, "I did something like that before." I said, "Really?" But he didn't know the history, right? So when you study Paul Robeson, I have a book on Paul Robeson, and it says the Ethiopian Moor. That's what it says in there by Paul Robeson. You could probably Google it. It says the Ethiopian Moor, right? I said, what? Paul Robeson? So in my brain, I'm like, I wonder if Denzel was doing that in that play, because he just did a play on Othello, right? Seats was, I wanted to go, but it was beyond my my bank. Yeah. My bank account wasn't gonna rock with that.
It was astronomical. Everybody, we're talking about the Moors. I want to talk about travel, and Sabir, how important is it for those who can get a passport and go see some things, for them to take advantage of going to see some things? Because the history that you all are talking about actually exists. And everywhere I travel, I could see the Moorish influence. I've been inside of Lalibela, and I've seen the certain windows. There's a certain architecture. There's a certain design. There's certain symbols, and you see these all over the place. So much so that you see the stone masonry work all over the world, from Stonehenge to the Olmec to, I mean, it doesn't matter. Wherever you go, you see a fingerprint. You see folks who somehow wanted to say, there's going to come a time where they say you aren't nothing and you haven't done anything, but I'm going to put some stuff here that they can never remove. and they can only speculate about. So anytime I hear somebody say, well, we don't know how that got here, we don't
Well, you
know
got to
how that
understand who
was
did it.
built.
Who's the school system? I think it was John Henry Clark that said, "If a man don't," was it John Henry Clark said, "If a man don't treat you right, he ain't gonna teach you right." So it's by design, bro. That's why they have this European girl running around talking about blacks didn't invent anything. She was going at Mark Lamont Hill on social media. Her name was Giddis or something like that. She was talking about Mark Lamont Hill. She dressed up in blackface for Halloween. Yeah, her name is Jillian Giddies or something like that. And I was like, okay, that ain't nothing new. They've been dressing up looking like us. That ain't nothing new. But we getting emotional about it because she wore a black face, not knowing the history of Europeans always wanting to look like us. This is why they have tanning booths today. They run around with tanning booths. If it's about the complexion, why are you trying to get dark? It's something about that melanin.
If I were to use the word, if I was to use, if I were to just say, and I heard you talking about the sister who, Charlotte is named after, the sister who created the oldest university.
Fatima Feta. Her name is
Can I
Fatima
can
Feta.
I can I use sister or brother
Yeah,
synonymously as
but
more?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
just
but
think it like in that like if you understand the culture and how that's used, we got brothers and sisters, they Muslims, they Christians, they're Ifa, they're all over the place and they're everything, but you're still like, but that's sisters and brothers, they got a common, denominator. Well, everybody's got a common denominator. But why is it and who is it that is using the word more to very much be divisive? Because we know that disunity is the key to making sure that the status quo continues to function as it is.
okay. Let me say this. I don't think it's a more that's divisive. We not like that. We're Moors are Moors. I don't know that brother. That brother's a Moor. You see what I'm saying? I knows him. I mean, what principles? I can ask him his principles. He'll tell me his principles. I don't know him. But if I ask him his principles, he's gonna give me the principles, right? If I ask our people, so-called black people, give me your principles, everybody gonna say something different. I do this test all the time. Brother, what's your 5 principles do you stand on?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Okay. Now ask everybody in that room that same question. They're black. Watch what they say. You follow me? I don't know him, but it's a principle we all stand on. So we're not separate. It's just that the manipulation and the propaganda that's being put out here. We're not separate. This is why it's important. And to speak to you about the traveling part. Traveling is the key. I just told a guy, an assistant, the best education you can give your child is to let them travel. Don't let them be in 4 walls. Don't go in debt to put them in a university because we're going in debt trying to keep these children in the school that they don't want to be in that school. You see what I'm saying? We're doing it. So all of these things that we're doing it, right? We're not being told that the oldest university is by a sister, right? We're going to school to be indoctrinated, not educated. So the key is that you can travel the world and learn multiple languages. You can ask the average black person here, how many languages do they speak? They're going to say one. Now ask somebody outside of the United States, how many languages you speak? They're going to say like 3 or 4. Why you don't study more than one language? You see what I'm saying? But if you travel, you'll start understanding the language. I ran across a young brother at the time. He was 23. He's probably 26 now, 27. He never went to school. I'm in Morocco, in the Medina. And he would, every time he would see me, if I'm walking through the Medina, Sabir, Sabir. And he said, I learned language through tourism. He said, I speak 7 languages, bro, through tourism, not going to school. He said, I never went to school. This is what he said. He left at 8. I think he said 7th, 8th grade, but he know multiple languages. You see what I'm saying? So that's the key of the traveling. When you travel, you learn. When I was in Spain, I was learning Spanish. When I got here, I got dumbed back down again. You see what I'm saying? I'm in Portugal. I was learning Portuguese when I was over there. Then I came back, I got dumbed down, right? I was in France, in Marseille, learning French, right? Came back home, I can't speak a lick of French, right? I got to go to my phone and translate. You see what I'm saying? So the key is to travel because you're not going to get into these universities, brother, unless you're in an Ivy League school. You see what I'm saying? We're not in Ivy League schools.
Well, they do say that just one trip around the world is going to smoke a PhD.
Oh, yes, no
If you
doubt.
if you if you just start traveling, if you just start stopping and seeing, like for example, I can talk about places that I've been and things that I've seen that you go into a classroom and a teacher will be telling you about something they never even visited.
But
You know what
that's
I
true.
mean? Or they'll be looking for the right answer and all those different things. And you could say, yeah, you're right, that actually does exist. How do I know? Not because I trust what you're saying, but because I actually went there and saw it for myself. That's why they say, seek knowledge, even if it takes you as far away as China or whatever. Knowledge is worth more than diamonds when the mind is shining. Surprises for God's earths and 85ers. There was,
Okay,
I
player.
mean,
Okay,
you
player,
know.
player. Y'all don't know what he just
What do
did.
we do? What do we do with all of this? Like, how do you reconcile all of this?
Yes.
What is it, and particularly in 2025, what is it that you do with all of this?
Yes, let me jump in real quick because me and the wife gotta get up out of here
Yeah.
in a second. But
Yeah, we got about 10 more, but you got 10
Yes.
more minutes?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And to Brother Sabir Bey's point and to your point, right? The term, bringing it all back from where we started, the term Moor is really a unifier because
Yep.
even prior to Islam, you have Moors in Morocco. You had this thing called the Donatist movement, where Moors were actually Christians, but they was fighting against the Roman Empire and the Roman imperialism, right? So there is a Moorish paper paper trail and background of Moors being Christians, Moors being Jews,
Yep.
Moors being Muslims, right? That's mainly what most of our people practice today. So understanding and breaking down that history will bring about more unity amongst us because all the different types of nationalities of people, even though I want to use Nigeria is going through a crisis right now, right? Quote unquote crisis with the Christians and the farmland and stuff like that. However, you got Christians, Muslims, Jews, Ifa, all of that in Nigeria, but they all Nigerian. And this is the concept of nationality that we need to understand as a people that Malcolm X was trying to talk to us about. Is like, we can put the religion to a side.
Put that to the side.
Just for a second to talk about the national unity. But now once we bring in the historical background to it, it actually creates more unity because like our brother who went to Spain, there was a period called La Convivencia, the great coexistence, and how Muslims, Jews, and Christians were living in a almost utopian society and was working hand to hand. We can learn a lot from each other, but because we have been infested with a colonial mindset, our first thing to do is divide and label.
Wow. And if you read Frantz Fanon's work, he talks about it in his work. Frantz Fanon work, The Colonized Mind. All of these things, brother, and this is what the brother was saying. The uniformity, right, was the Moorish piece. That was the umbrella of no matter if you're Mexican, rather you from the Caribbean, the uniformity was the Moorish part. I don't know, who did it. I say the cheapest thing you could buy is an N and a stick of gum and a nigga. I'm just gonna keep it real. Let's keep it a buck. I'm just because man, I just honestly, Jeff, because it should not be this complicated in this day and time, brother.
It's not, but I don't know why it is.
Because again, I just told you why. The cheapest thing you could buy is a nigga and a stick of gum. I told you. The professors are supposed to teach this, bro. That's their job. That's what they get paid for. It's our job is do what we supposed to be doing. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to gather the information and bring it back. Here it is. This is what it is. But you're fighting with your own people. You see what I'm saying? This is why I said keep bringing up Bo Abdel, because we want something to be something. You know what I mean? We want to be the head and in charge. You know what I mean? This is us. This thing, brother, they can never allow the Moors to fully wake up. But I love, and again, I'm not in the Moorish Science Temple, and they are my brothers. But one thing I do, I respect what Noble Jolly said. He said it will be the third and fourth generation coming with their eyes wide open. Why do you think they trying so hard to bury this information about the Moors? When you go to these other countries, bro, and you see it for yourself, you be like, wait a minute. You go to Morocco, you go over to Tunis, and I'm sitting in Tunisia, and the guy telling me about my fez on my head. I'm like, really? Okay. Y'all are the original people. You see what I'm saying? But you have people that start amalgamating. You have people started, you be somewhere for a while. What happens, bro? I'm in California. If I meet with somebody in California, I'm from Philadelphia, dude. You know me? I have a daughter from California. I'm from Philly.
When traveling to Spain, Portugal, where are the top spots that people must like? You're like, man, if you go here, you must see this.
I'm gonna say go to Granada. Go to Granada. I'm not a fan of Barcelona. Barcelona's like being in the States. I'm gonna say go to Granada, go to Seville, go down to the southern, go to Cordoba, where the largest mosque is at. You know, the Mosquita. Go down there. Go down there with Abbas Ibn, and because this is where you're going to find the history at. You know, you're going to find in Toledo, Spain, where they threw all the books in the river at and made the water black. It's a whole story. If you look at the Moorish castle in Toledo, Spain, it's surrounded by water. And you go to the top, you actually will see it. So they would throw some of the books inside the water, and the ink made the water black. So they kept certain books. They kept certain like medicine books, science books, but some of the books they threw away. Then you would actually see the Inquisition places. You'll see all these things. So I would say go to the southern part, not the northern part. You can find some things in those places, but you're not really going to see because a lot of stuff was down in the south. Always the south.
Man, when we think about this, I have a book. It's the Moors of Spain.
Stanley Lane.
Yeah.
Yes, and I must have loaned it to somebody. So if I loaned you my book, which is a taboo thing to ever do,
Never do.
don't
Never do.
ever do it. Could you bring your brother his book back?
Listen,
Well, can you talk a little bit about what's in that book? But they didn't get away with my Ivan Van Sertima, The Golden Age of the Moor. The scholarship has been there, particularly recent scholarship that has been buried by now pseudo entertainment scholarship. You know, that's permeating social media, I would imagine. But I'm surprised at how many individuals I'm seeing wearing faces on t-shirts, saying slogans, and have no idea of where it's coming from, the depth of studies, the Sheikh Anta Diop. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on of individuals who have uncovered all of this. And just because it was uncovered, it just doubled down individuals to rebury it. It's like we keep discovering what's already there.
100%. 100%. Like, I'm 28 and I just learned about this, you know, towards the end of my college career. But then that somebody like Van Sertima was talking about this in the 80s and the 90s, and it makes somebody question like me and a lot of Moors that's like fourth generation. Well, what happened? How was y'all getting this information and it basically got buried? But I mean, I think about that a lot because what happened is, you know, the party happened, right? The crack in the 80s, the 90s, all of these different things was used to distract our people from actually tapping into the knowledge, because at a point in time, it literally wasn't cool to be smart in our communities. I was being in third grade, dumbing down myself because I thought it wasn't cool to be the boy in the class answering all the questions.
Yes. And this is the thing, bro. Like a lot of I've been doing this almost 30 years, going on 30 years, right? It's no money in this. It's no money in the truth, brother. There's no money in the truth. And I've seen brothers like Hakeem Bey, many great brothers who just disappeared from this, brother, because there's no money in it. Nobody backs the truth. They backs the lie. So this is why, you know, and I have to give a shout out to my brother Taj Tariq Bey. He's damn near 80, and Taj never gave up. He never gave up on this, brother. Taj kept going, but at the same time, there's no health care in this, bro. We don't have people handing us money and saying, yo, brother, keep going. You know, and when I talked to James Smalls, and Smalls said that you kept going, you know, it was times that, brother, I was going places. I would bring James Smalls and Kaba and Taj together, and I would go out to pay all of them, and I would go pay Smalls, and he would give me my money right back. I was like, God damn, thank you very much. He said, because you the one that travels. You the one, and it wasn't pennies. Literally, he said, because you need this to travel to get this information back to us. And that's one thing why I respect Baba James Smalls, because he understands what it takes to do this. Because I lost a lot traveling too, a lot, because I was by myself. So it's a lot. Like you have that book. I have probably that book. I have the Stanley Lane Pool, the Moors before Spain, after Spain, the Golden Age of the Moors. I have every last one of them. When I got one for sale, right? But this is another one I was on a plane reading, and I brought this one with me because I was going to sell this one. I got 5 of these when I go to places. There was a Mexican sister on the plane reading this book on the plane. And I said, oh, I was coming back from Spain. Her father was Mexican. Her mother was Portuguese. Spanish, I think it was. And as I'm on the plane, I'm quoting the book to her. I said, oh, I got the same book. I ain't have my book with me, but she had hers. So I said, oh, you know about the Moors? She said, yeah, I'm learning. A young girl, 17 years old. You see what I'm saying? But we don't want to hear that. Like he said, we don't want to hear. So it's not me that is holding it back. It's the scholars that is holding these things back, bro. It's
Wow.
not me. So, and this is what is happening. We need to have these type of dialogues to understand it. And again, people, this is me again. I see people waking up more and more. So what happens? They got to keep trying to bury it. They got to bury this, brother, and create this division. Like the brother said, the Moors is the unifier. The whole Moorish movement. You don't have to be a part of a temple. You don't have to say Islamism. You see what I'm saying? To be a Moor had nothing to do with that. It's you. It's who you are. Because black is not a nationality. It's not even a race.